Okay, I think we're ready to start here. Uh, what?
If the other things are taking forever to load, so we're just going to.
Okay. Okay, so this is the mobile apps course, CIS 33, 34 for this. It's one of the software development courses in both the software development concentration in the CIS major and in the computer science major here. We offer it every other spring here. I mean, every other fall. It's fall right now. Every other fall for this. So welcome to class. I think most of you know my name is Tom, and I am your teacher today. So I hope you had a nice summer. I had a busy summer. It was good, but it was a little. And this is all every summer is this like they're a little bit too busy. They're not really that busy, but I just relax a lot during the summer, and so I shut down a lot, and and so I don't get as much done as I do when I'm actually working. It seems like so. I had a fair amount of fun this summer. I also worked a lot on a couple projects this summer. So um, that's smart. So this course is a flex class. So there are actually two sections in this. There's the in-person section, and those of you who are in person right now are in that section. And there's a group of online students who are also here. And so I'll be generally recording this on Zoom and posting this online. So kind of standard operating process for this. If you ever can't make it to class, you can watch the Zoom session. I'll try to post that after class here. I don't know, some of you will be just doing Zoom almost all the time. I mean, watching the recording all the time, which is okay. And again, all the activities will generally have an in-class version and an online version also here. So let's just jump. Okay, we're going to do this a little differently. We're going to go through the syllabus, all that stuff, but we've got to get Android Studio installed, and the network is just really bogged down the first day of class. It's going to take us. I tried it out over the weekend. I tried it out yesterday even, and it took me 10 minutes, which probably means it'll take almost 2 hours for us today. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe the network is up and running really well here. So I'm just going to get started with that. And again, we'll talk for online people, we'll show it. But for the students here, we want to run Android Studio and start installing that. So if you go down here and type Android Studio or find it some other way, run Android Studio here. Okay, so here's our Android Studio. And we're just going to walk through the install, and then there's times where it's going to download gigs of stuff, and that's where we're going to run into, I think, some problem. We'll see. So again, standard install is fine. And we're installing, there's different versions. This is 2025 1.1.1, I think, in the labs. We'll be upgrading it to 0.1.2 soon here. Which is the current version. So again, it's going to download some stuff here. And again, you might notice there's a couple of things like this is 1.8 gigs here. You have to approve these licenses. So the first license here, you just hit accept. You won't be able to go to next until you click down here to the second part and accept. So you have to accept both. There's two parts to this that it's kind of confusing, but you have to click on the license, hit accept, and hit the preview license and hit accept. And then you can hit finish here. And then we'll be installing. And we'll just let it install for a long time. Okay, we'll see how that goes. So again, should just take 5-10 minutes. Okay, so while you're doing that, I'm going to jump back and see here. Okay, I'm going to bring up our. You can't do a first day of class. I'll be looking at the syllabus. It's just like, right? It just wouldn't feel good here. So let's look at the syllabus. So if I was a good teacher, I would like have different ways of teaching in different classes. I'm not. I'm a boring teacher. So this class works a lot like almost every other class I teach. Sorry, if you don't like how I teach. It's just the way it is. There, I'm old and just I don't do that so much. So you'll see how this works. So here's the description. Again, here's my email, phone number. And again, if you don't have that in your system yet, you probably will want to at some point. And again, feel free to call or text me. No one ever calls me. Don't call me. So text me. Feel free to text me at any time. The standard text, again, this is being somewhat replaced by AI, but you can use me as your own little Gemini is to just, I get people who take a picture of the air screen and text it to me and say, why doesn't this work? And then it's kind of a fun puzzle because then it's just like, oh, I only get one image and I only get to see part of the air message. And now I have to figure out if I can figure this out for this student. And so that's kind of fun. There, I like that challenge there. So feel free to text me anytime. And I tell students, my phone goes off at night and comes on in the morning automatically. So you can text me at any time of the day. I won't answer. I mean, I won't know until I get up in the morning. So don't worry about, oh, it's, 8 o'clock at night. Is it too late for Tom? So yeah, you can check. So yeah, I just got a text last night at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm going, who's awake at 4 o'clock in the morning? So it wasn't me. So, well, I didn't see it this morning. And so, okay. Also, there are calendar slots, especially for the online students. Again, in-person students, you're welcome to stop in my office face-to-face. My office has been pretty crowded this morning. But again, there are calendar slots. You should be able to go there. And right now, oh, no, they don't seem to be working. That's interesting. So there should be calendar slots here. That you should be able to go to. Yeah. Let me just modify this link. Okay. So right now I have evening appointments on Thursdays and Sundays there. So you're welcome to sign up for appointments then. We'll see if we go on, if we need more. And sometimes I'll add office hours to here too, also during the week. But again, your in-class students are welcome to stop by in class. I mean, stop by in the office. But again, sometimes it's just easier, especially if you're working whatever, just to book an appointment. So feel free to set up an appointment here to chat with me. So all that stuff is pretty straightforward. And again, if you've had a class with me, it's similar. Again, we'll have so generally, this class will meet in person Tuesdays and Thursdays. So the general process I have is on Tuesdays, we learn new things and nothing is due. It's all practice, all learning stuff. So like today, we'll try some stuff, but you don't have to turn in anything today. Nothing will be due today or later on in the week or anything like that on Tuesdays. Thursdays, we'll do an activity in class, but that you have to submit. There. So you'll have a learning activity that you'll do in class on Thursdays. It's not due until Sunday nights. Again, for online students and for all of us, I mean, you don't feel, we'll walk through it in class on Thursday, but you just have to have it submitted by the end of, move over to this one. That one isn't happy. Has anyone put in there's one on the computer. Has anyone put in a help request on that computer yet? The one not working one? Is anyone working? Who's working on the help desk this semester? No one's going to admit that because then we're going to be asking you all the time for. Okay, I'll put in a work request for that. One of the computers is not. I think the hard drive is gone. So okay, sorry. So Thursdays we'll do a learning activity in class, and it'll be due. The general assumption is that if you're in class, you should be able to submit it or complete it in class and submit it by the end of the class period. But again, it's not due to Sunday night, and online students and anyone else, if you want, you can take your time and submit it by Sunday night. So that's Tuesday, Thursday. And then there'll be an assignment. So that's the learning activities. And then there'll be assignment every week. After you do a learning activity on Thursday, you should be ready to do the assignment. The assignment is something you generally can work on, starting on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it's due Sunday night there for that. And there'll be, again, an assignment every week. So every week there'll be, so when we look at this, there should be, all I have is unit 1 open, I guess, right now. There'll be learning activity and a assignment here. I'm hoping to have unit quizzes every week just to help you vocab. So these are low stake quizzes that you can take as many times as you want, just 5-point quizzes to practice. The reason I'm trying to do that, I think, in this class is to make sure you're learning the vocabulary that we're doing every week. I used to not be that much into vocabulary because I thought as long as you can code, that's the important part. But now with AI and stuff like that, I think it's getting to be more important to be able to explain yourself, especially if you're working with AI, the correct vocabulary and terms and stuff like that. So there'll be a unit quiz every week. So you should see that every week will be a unit 1 review quiz here. Right now it's hidden because I haven't updated it for this week. So, but that should be available. And again, it's just 5 points, and you can take it as many times as you want. And it'll just be 5 quick questions. And we'll have 3 projects now for this course, not 2. So I have to adjust that. Okay, sorry about that. Now the course is broken into okay. Let's just talk about the history of this course. We used to teach this course with Java, and we'd spend the whole semester with Android Studio and do advanced Java sort of stuff in Android Studio, programming Android apps. But that only works on an Android device, and we wanted to look more at iOS development and other development stuff. So a number of years ago, I introduced Flutter, which is a higher level environment for creating apps there. And it creates apps for both Android and iOS and web. So you can create a website, you can create an iOS app, or you can create an Android app with the same Flutter project. So last 2 times I think I've taught that, we've been doing Flutter there. And we'll continue to do that in this class. But also, Google with Android Studio has created a new language called Kotlin, which is this advanced kind of language. And they've largely phased out Java, and they want all new development to be in Kotlin here. Last time I taught it still all in Java and didn't do Kotlin, but it was getting hard. And now it's almost impossible because it used to be the tutorials where you could switch back and forth, but now all the tutorials are in Kotlin. And they don't even have tutorials in Java generally anymore. So, but I still want to do some Java because again, you're coming from Java, 2085. You've had some Java, so I want to show you some of that. So we'll be doing this. So the first part of the class, we'll be doing traditional Android Studio with Java and Kotlin. We'll often we'll go over examples in both there. Assignments, you can do it in either generally. So in a lot of the assignments here, well, like the learning activities, we'll often do a Java version and a Kotlin version here. But when we do an assignment and you're on your own, you can do it in either Java or Kotlin there and submit either one or the other for this. I'm interested to see, I think initially some of you will want to stick with Java because it is more familiar to you, but I'm thinking you're going to switch to Kotlin before too long because there are some things that are just easier with Kotlin. Now, there's some things that are harder in Kotlin. There's this whole null safety sort of stuff and some rules that you're not familiar with. You have to go underneath. Yeah, you grab that one. So you have to see which one. But again, we'll be looking at a lot of examples in both here. So, and then we'll be doing Flutter here. And again, that's so we can, and Flutter is a higher level stuff. I've been looking if we should still do Flutter, and Flutter, it seems to be quite popular and important still. And what's nice is that some of the stuff that we learned in Kotlin will carry over to Flutter. And some of the stuff, if you're used to using Flutter and Kotlin and this sort of widget-based development, is not that different from probably what you're seeing like in React if you're doing web programming in a JavaScript library where you're creating widgets and you're putting widgets are calling widgets and stuff like that there. So we'll do Flutter. And then at the end, we're going to use Firebase Studio. So Firebase Studio is the new Google's alternative to some of the other AI-based coding environments where you basically prompt and talk to the AI about what you want it to do, and it generates things for you for this. What's nice about Firebase Studio is it's all, well, couple things. It's all in Firebase, and we'll be using Firebase for a number of other things. So we'll be using some Firebase stuff here for like automated logins and non-SQL databases, and same here. So we'll use Firebase here. So it's tied into Firebase here, but it also lets us get to the code. So you can use AI to do some initial layout and stuff, but you can also go in and look at the code. And again, that I think will be very powerful for someone like you who knows how to code and then maybe also knows how to use AI. You can use AI to help you get started, and then you can jump in the code and work on some stuff there and jump back to AI. So I haven't used it much anymore, but by November 17th, I'll be an expert on it. So we'll see. But again, I looked at a number of other options, and this Firebase Studio seems like it's the for what we're going to do is the best alternative. So again, you'll have 3 projects. The first third of the class, we'll be doing an Android Studio project with either Java or Kotlin, and you'll do a project there. We'll do a Flutter project, and then we'll do one of these vibe coding projects with Firebase Studio here. So part of me says, this doesn't really make sense, Tom. So the hardest stuff we'll be doing is in this first 6 weeks. This coding is very hard to do. So if you can get through this, well, at least in my mind, this is the most difficult coding we have, is just the first part. So this is the hardest coding. Flutter is I think, a lot easier to code and work with. It's kind of a high-level scripting language. It's kind of cool there. And again, this AI-based coding should be so again, we're actually starting from deep in code and working our way up as time goes. So, questions on the course? Okay. Let's see how we're doing on Studio. Oh. So we're still downloading components. How are we doing? So. Now, okay, so we'll let that keep going here and see how far we get. Okay, so a couple things. Let's talk about using devices here. So again, we'll be doing a lot of Android development in class here. So you have a couple options. There is we can set up the emulator and run that. In fact, that looks like that's what it was just installing right now is the emulator. So there will be an emulator, and we can run an Android device in a window here. That'll work out fine. It does kind of slow things down, and I will tend not to do that often. Like here, when I'm zooming at the same time, because we start up a whole phone system and run it on air, and these are not the most powerful computers in the world. So I find if I'm running an emulator, an Android emulator, emulating a good phone, and running Zoom, and then running Android Studio, it's a little much for these computers here. And I have an Android device. So if you have an Android device, you can use that. And so I'll be plugging that in here. So I'll be plugging in my Android device here. We have a handful, probably 6 or so Android devices that you could check out. So if you're working on this and you're on campus, let me know if you want to try out an old Android device that we have around for this. Online students, we'll talk about this. And again, we can run this. It will be important to get your emulator up and running. And this first week, it'll take some effort sometimes. Sometimes you get the emulators up and running, no problem at all. I set it up on my laptop, and it was just, click, 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 first try, everything. In the labs here, we run into problems with the emulators because of the way the machines are set up as far as virtualization and stuff like that. So we might, there can be some issues with virtualization and how your machine is set up. And then there are different options as far as the emulators go. So we'll talk about that. So again, you will want to have either a device or an emulator running, and it can be an all device there. But you'll want to do that in the class. Okay. Okay, let's just talk a little bit. I'm going to go into the learning resources and see how that goes. I'm just trying to think. I made a mistake. I thought, I want to make sure I run Android, the installer here in class so you can see it here. And again, I ran it on one of your machines yesterday, and it installed in like 10 minutes, but it's not doing that today. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, I'm going to learning resources. Just an again, this talks about the layout of the class, what we'll be doing here. Let's talk about the Android operating system. And let's have you collect some things. So what we need you to do is we need some information about the market share. So the world is largely now divided between iOS, Apple systems and Android systems. And question often comes up is, should often we're developing for one or the other, but again, we'll look at some options developed for both there. And so how's the market? If you were only going to develop an app for one, should you be doing what's the Android market share here? And it often changes. So can you look up the current market share? So we want either the market share in the US or in the world there. So find that and we'll put in those figures here. So let's edit this. So do some research now and find a recent article or stuff for the market share. And then we're also going to do app revenue, because it's one thing if you're selling an app to say, well, 40% of the apps are running Android or something like that. But then the question also comes at, well, how much money are people spending on those apps? Because if they're spending a lot more money or a lot less money, that's important. So we want to look at market and so Android, you can open up the Wikipedia article if you want. So this came out, when was version 2? I thought it was, yeah, 2008. Okay, so early on. So we've had Android around for a long time. And again, it's Google's response to the iOS system. It's much more of an open source system. So again, Apple's philosophy is very closed, locked in. They control their whole ecosystem and stuff like that. Android and Google have much more open philosophy. So they have the Android operating system. They have the base version of the operating system. But companies like Samsung and stuff like that can take the Android basing and then modify it for their own version. So any sort of non-Apple phone or tablet or whatever is running Android, and often that company's own version of Android again. So you can modify this open source kind of library. I have a Google Pixel phone. So this is a phone from Google. So this runs base Android kind of sort of stuff. So this is kind of here. And it gets updates whenever Android gets updates. But again, a lot of companies like my tablet that I have, it doesn't get updates very often. And it's running an older version of Android because it doesn't get updates there. Because again, the company released, modified the operating system, and then even though Android was updated, they did not update their own, at least the version that was made for my tablet here. So we'll see different phones are running different versions of Android, and then we'll have to decide which Android versions we want to support when we create a thing. So. It has a pretty standard architecture. I think this is the picture that I want to just go over. So again, we're running on a Linux kernel here. So at the low, at the bottom end, this is a Linux device. Almost everything is a Linux device now. And then there's the hardware abstraction is above that. And that lets us run this on lots of different hardware. So again, the manufacturers will create their phone system or their car or whatever device this is running on, their watch here. And then the hardware abstraction will abstract the audio, the Bluetooth, the camera, and provide a set of interfaces to that hardware. So this is kind of like what we in Windows or something you call the drivers, device driver kind of layer here. A lot of it is built, a lot of the libraries are built in C and C++, and a lot of this is because they were just bringing in existing libraries into this. And these were written in C and C++. Because again, this is coming from a Linux world, and a lot of the libraries are that way. And then parallel to this is the whole Android runtime system. And then we have, above this, we have in here it's showing the Java framework. And again, we also have a Kotlin framework that runs on top of this. And then again, then you're running your apps. So again, pretty standard layered architecture for a device. And again, it wouldn't be that much different from even, where you could see Windows and the layers for that. So, we'll be looking at a number of patterns for creating data modules and setting things up in different ways. We talk about some of these. So some of you have had software design where we talk about like how to take code and break it up into loosely coupled components. We talk about a model view controller or a model view model, or separating the data. We talk about separation of concerns and stuff like that there. So if you've had a software design class, you'll see a lot of that introduced or done in this class eventually. But if you haven't, we will just do it, and just know that we'll be doing stuff, and we won't talk too much about the theoretical framework for why that is. We'll just say this is a principle, and we're going to use it. We're going to use this architecture to set things up here. So we'll be doing a lot of things where we'll break things into modules here and work with things in different modules and communicating back and forth between the modules often. So well, also one thing that's interesting on your phone is we don't create everything from scratch. We in Android world, we use a lot of existing apps there. So like if we're making a phone call, we don't have to program the phone call logic here. We'll just pass the necessary information over to the phone app, and it will make a call. Same with a calendar. If we want to add items to a calendar, we can pass it to a calendar app on your phone and send that in. So our one app can, and again, you typically see this on your phone, will actually make use of the other apps on your phone in a more integrated environment. And there's a way of having one app access another app for this. Okay, how are we doing for market share? Can someone give me some figures? What is the percent of the Android market share out there?
Worldwide or?
Worldwide. Try this. Did you do worldwide?
73.9%.
73.9. I'm going to call it 74%. How old was that? Is that relatively recent?
Yeah, since July 2025.
Okay. Did anyone else get other figures? I see a lot of variations in the figures depending on who's citing them, that sort of stuff. So give me another worldwide figure.
About 72.
72 for Android. So again, a big chunk worldwide. Now let's talk about US. Who looked up US market share? Yep.
iOS has 55. Android has 45.
45. Anyone else get any other numbers for the US market share?
Yeah, 57 for iOS and 42 Android.
Okay, yeah, 42. So that range. So one thing that's interesting to note is that outside the US, there's a lot more Android use than Apple iOS use there. So if you're looking worldwide, you're doing, and so one thing we also look at is that if we are doing that, it's important that we're able to structure our app to run in and support multiple different languages there. And so there's a fair amount of support, and we'll be looking at that with different languages for this. So yes, almost 75% worldwide, but less than, well less than 50% in the US market, because Apple has such a strong US hold. Let's talk about ad revenues here. Does anyone find out how much? So I'm trying to figure out. how much revenue is generated. So if you make an app and you're selling the app or you're doing something, you're trying to raise money, how big of a pot is there for this? Do more people, more Android users buy? So have you bought apps? Or using just free apps? So you're poor college students probably using a lot of free apps there. But at some point, some of you maybe have real jobs or getting things you're now buying that app there. If you're buying an app there. So can someone find app revenue for Apple versus Android? Still installing. Getting closer though for this stuff. So this is the big 1.8 gigabyte download that takes forever. So okay. Yes. $142 billion in Apple or yeah, for Apple. Okay, and how much for Android did it say? 65 billion. So in general, Apple users, if they can afford an Apple phone, they also can afford to buy apps there, and they're less free. Maybe they're just less free. But again, there's a lot more money spent on the Apple Store than in the Android store. So if you do want to get rich, you should definitely be looking at pushing things out. But again, maybe the market isn't there to you, and you have to look at other things. But again, there's a lot more money being spent on Apple Play Store or Apple Store than the Android Store in general. So just keep that in mind as you're creating apps. So yes.
On the Android phone or Android apps, you can like bootleg different types of apps too. So I feel like people are less likely to buy things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is tight. So Apple really keeps a pretty close lock on things, and you have to buy things, I think, right? In the Apple, I think you basically have to buy things through the Apple Store in order to get it run on your Apple device. Where actually on the, one of the things, there are multiple ways to sideload or bring Apple's, devices in to an Android device. And some other companies have their own store. So if you are running let's say you're running a Amazon any of the Amazon devices there, they have their own Amazon Play Store that's separate from the Google Play Store there. And again, if you're running devices in other countries, a lot of times particularly China is a huge market, and they have a lot of Android devices there, but they tend to have their own stores there. Different, some of the main manufacturers there will have their own areas. So yeah. Okay. What are we going to be looking at here? So we're going to be walking through some different tutorials here. One of the big ones is this Android Basics with Compose. So I'm going to click on that. Oops. That didn't work. Interesting. Oh, yes. I pasted that in from a Google Doc, and it didn't paste it in correctly. Okay. It just pasted a link to the Google Doc, it looks like.
Try opening a new tab.
Oh, will that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's it. Okay. Mark those so they automatically open up in a new tabs. Okay. Okay. So this is a course now. You can decide if you want to, you don't have to log in or whatever, but Google will track your progress in these courses and these things, and so you can earn the normal fun badges and course stuff and things like that for this. We won't necessarily be doing everything, but we'll do there are some places we'll be doing most of learning pathways or stuff like that. So again, when you're into developer.android.com or learning.google.com or whatever, you can be logged in here for that. And then as you're going through these areas, you will see your progress. So if I click on this stuff and I break it and go to this collab, it'll often remember where I'm at in the collab and will mark things as done in the collab for this. So it kind of remembers this sort of stuff because I'm logged in to this collab. So feel free to do that. You don't have to, but some students find that helpful for this. We'll be doing, again, a lot. Again, we don't have a textbook for this class, so we're relying a lot on these online tutorials here. And what we tend to see is these online tutorials will have generally 3 parts. They'll have some videos, they'll have some text descriptions, and then they'll have some code labs. And collabs are these interactive or lessons where you'll go and develop something for this. So this course, so how this is set up is there's a course. This is the Android Basics with Compose course here. And inside that, there are 3 pathways here. There's the introduction to Kotlin, set up Android Studio, and basic layout pathways. Well, actually, that's just in the first unit, your first app here. So in unit 1, we'll do those 3 things. Unit 2, again, more things here. And so like this week, we'll basically be doing all of unit 1 of this app. We're setting up Android Studio now. So again, we can go there and look at it, introduces you. So the fun, exciting video. And Google developers, they're very excited about things in general. So it's just so nice to see exciting people talking about their exciting projects there. And we get fun music.
If you're curious, take a look at Android Studio documentation.
Yes, let's go write apps. Doesn't that make you think this is a fun, exciting course, even though Tom's teaching it? There. Okay, so there's the videos, download and install Android Studio. That's a code lab, and so they'll walk through. That's basically what we're doing here. Create your first Android project here, and running your first app on the Android emulator. We'll set that up. So again, we'll be walking through this a lot this week. Then the basic layout is what I was hoping to do today is a app for rolling dice here for this, but it's not. I'm not thinking that we're going to get there today. So we'll see how this goes. Okay. Let's talk about Kotlin then. So the other thing is this Kotlin language. So again, in this class, you'll be able to we'll look at examples in both Java and Kotlin a lot for this. So let's just talk a little bit about Kotlin. So again, if I'm going to this introduction to programming Kotlin stuff, and again, that should be right here also. Although you may have to right click and say open a new tab for that. Again, it's asked, there's a code lab to determine if this is the right training course for your interests. And so if you're in this course, it is, so you don't have to do that one here. It introduces this compose and talks about this video in a video with Android compose. So what we'll see is there's going to be two ways of laying out the user interface. One is with a separate XML file. And in Java, that's what we'll do, because we have to do that in Java, is we'll have a separate XML file that'll lay out there. But there's a nice WYSIWYG editor where we can drag and drop items around on that, and it'll save the XML file. And that is generally called views, or something like that, because it's a view file. And now the new, more advanced version is with Kotlin is called compose. And that is where in your code, you also specify the layout of your screen. So again, if you've done maybe some web layout or so, some like JavaScript or stuff layout in stuff where you're trying to lay out a web page and you're setting up widgets or stuff like that on the page, that is kind of what compose looks like. Is we lay out the different fields. We create, oh, I need a row or I need a column, and I need a button in the column, and you put the buttons there and you lay everything out. So compose will be that. So whenever we create a project or stuff, when we're working with Kotlin, we'll almost always work with compose, and when we're working with Java, we'll work with these views here. So again, we can look at our first stuff now. To do some initial stuff with Kotlin, you can do this with their little editor. They have a Kotlin playground here. So we can open up their Kotlin playground, and we can program stuff with that. Except it's all and so again, this is a Kotlin program, and I can just hit run, and I'll run it here. So eventually we'll be programming, of course, in Android Studio, but for simple stuff and learning the language, we can run it here. So different than Java, but some similarities. So it has a main function, and that's the function that's run by default. Kotlin is a fun language, so we just label everything fun. Now, some people say that that's short for functions, but you and I know it just because it's a fun language. So it's a fun language. So every little part, every little function will be labeled fun here. We have our curly brace here and the beginning. We have a print line. Now, we don't have to do a system.out.println, or we can just say print line and then specify it. And no semicolons. I know you're going to miss the semicolons. I'm sorry, no semicolons here. So, we can modify this. I can, play around. What happens if I add another one? Let's say hello world. And I hit the run button to run that. Again, unlike Python, indents don't matter. So you can indent however you want. Be creative with your indents and your spacing and stuff. This isn't Python. What matters is the brace, because we have the brackets here, indenting doesn't matter for that. Okay, then let's talk about variables. Yeah. Well, again, yeah, they talk about, and again, it's just parameters. So again, we can add parameters to our function to do different things. So let's just do that. So they're talking about, print line is a function, and we can call that. We'll define our own. Actually, I'm going to skip this whole thing. Again, there's a style guide. This is stuff you should read outside of class. Here. So we're going to go back. So this was just your first program in Kotlin. Let's try to create and use some variables, and that's a separate code lab here. Here. So standard variable types. Again, this talks about what a variable is, and it has a name, and then it has a value, and we store things in the values. And we have string, int, double, float, Boolean are our main types, all starting with a capital. So all the types start with the capital letters. So again, if you're coming from another world, you might be used to using lowercase ones, but here's what we're working with here. So when we define variables, we'll tend to do a value or a var. So this is val, and that's kind of like a constant here. So val num equals 2, and then so I can define a variable here, and then I can put it in. That's what I do here. Let's see if that works. I don't use Kotlin much, and I spent the whole summer in TypeScript and React. So it's going to take me, I'll warn you, it's going to take me a while to get back into Kotlin. Well, not back. I've never taught or used Kotlin before, so we'll see how this goes. So again, val is a constant. Num equals 2. It has an implied type here. So we can do that. We can also put in a type for this. So we can do num colon int is to for that, and run it that way. Inside strings with double quotes, we can reference things with a $sign. So if you put a $sign, so if I don't have a $sign here, it's just going to print out the word num there. If I put in a $sign, right, then it's going to print out, think of it as a variable. Where's that from? Is that job? Somewhere else you put a $sign in. Maybe it's in C. I don't know. That seems really familiar to me. I'm just trying to figure out where it is again. So it's here. And again, you can also put in whole, so you can say num plus 2 or something like that, and put that in quotes for that, and that'll. So this means that inside a quote, that's like code basically for this. Okay, so that's our variables. So value here, and our variable types here. And again, they're talking about type inference. Again, if we don't specify the type, they'll infer the type. Basic math operations are the same. Let's talk about updating variables. So here, if we want, I'm still not getting close here. Yeah, I'm just going to print off num back to that. Now, if I want to change num, say num equals 7 here, what will that do? So values are constants. You can't reassign them. So if I want a variable that can be reassigned, I use var for that. So a var is a variable. So again, val is a constant, var is a variable. for that. So, did you get that far? Okay, so if you get far enough where it asks you for the instructor or the admin permission, throw you over. That's getting exciting. Okay. Okay. I'm just gonna pause this real quick. Okay, so it installs a bunch of basic components, saying an emulator, a particular phone, and all this sort of stuff by default here. But we can go in later, and we will actually soon be changing what's installed and modifying that. So some of you said, you had to have admin permission to install some things. But again, if it skipped over that, we can update that later on and stuff like that. So again, here I've hopefully downloaded all my parts, and I'm just here, I finish, and I can hit that. So this is where we want to be here. Okay, I'm going to go back to the web page for a sec. Okay, so Kotlin, I suggest you spend a little time trying out Kotlin. Again, it shouldn't take you, hopefully, since you know how to program already, too much time. But do look at functions and how you have to, define functions here and pass parameters to a function here. So how you specify a parameter. So here's birthday greeting, where we have the name as a string. And it's also returning a string, how you return a value, or you specify that here. And then we'll call that. So we'll say birthday greeting, and we'll just pass in a string. So that looks pretty, and it returns a string. So this will become a string here. So you can look at that stuff. Multiple parameters here. You can have optional parameters. And then you'll have name parameters. So again, often we'll say birthday greeting, and you'll say name equals Rex and age equals 2. So often, again, when we have multiple parameters, we'll have it. And so it's not necessarily linked to the order, like Java. The order of the parameters were important here. Here we specify the name of each parameter, so it doesn't matter what order we put them in. It just matters if they're required, you have to have them all defined here. So again, if you haven't seen a language where we have named parameters before, Kotlin is that way, and you could look at that. So again, look through that. So again, I'd suggest going through this intro to Kotlin this week, and again, trying some stuff out in this playground is nice. So again, you can define your own additional functions here. And you can call that, and practice calling it, it's just nice. I don't know what how you like to learn a new language or stuff like that at this point. But again, just go through and try out. And again, this is called the Kotlin Playground, and I think that's a good example. I mean, I would just play around with this and try out some different things here. And again, you can try out the tutorial. Also, I mean, AI is really good at these things. So again, you can ask AI for help on, trying out different things in Kotlin and things like this in this playground. So, okay, I'm gonna leave that. Let's try Android Studio. So I'm gonna get a new project set up, and then I'll come around and help you out. So we are going to follow what are we doing? Unit 1. there's the dice rolling example. We're doing that. But I'll just warn you, I'm trying to catch these, but I'm already seeing I'll have a lot of numbers goofed up because again, we're taking last time I taught this course, the 15-week course, and we're pushing it down into 10 weeks so we can free up 5 weeks at the end for the new stuff. So like unit 1, I threw away, and we're doing unit 2. So the old unit 2. So it's like learning activity. I should have updated this. It says learning activity 2, but it's really learning activity 1. And again, I'll try to catch that, but again, I'm shifting all this stuff over, and I'll get better. But I'll just warn you there. But today we're doing unit 1, and it's the right unit. That's pretty good. Dice roll example. So why don't you look at that here? I'll come around and help people. I'm just going to get the initial thing. So again, we want to do a new project, and these are the two we'll do. We want to do the empty views activity. That'll let us do Java. So we're going to do an empty view activity and give it some name. Now, everything has a package name. I will tend to have our packages just be like CIS 3334 dot and then the name of the the program generally. The language has to be, we're going to do this first one in Java here. Now the API, I'm going to switch this to 10 here. And notice that like, if you go way back to Android 7, it'll run on 98% of devices out there. But if I go up to like Android 15, it only runs on 4.5% of the devices. So as a compromise, we're going to tend to do Android 10 as our minimum API. That'll run on 87 devices. Okay, so I'll leave this up. And then if you're good, you'll hit finish, and I'll go around and help some of you log in. Let me pause this recording again. Okay, so, and then we're just going to work through this. So if you want, you can just walk through these steps of this app. We just want to kind of go through it. I'm not going to talk too much about the code. We'll learn more of the code later on. So, but we want to just see if we can get this all working. So again, new project, I'm going to hit finish here, and we're going to get used to this whole this IDE here. So again, it's going to start things up. I'm going to allow this editor here, and again, when you do that, you may have to have an admin password. I don't think you necessarily have to worry about Windows Defender. You can hit exclude folders. I don't know if you need to, but again, I think you need elevated privileges for that. So I'm just going to ignore that. And I'm going to ignore what's new there. So there should be 2 files here, an XML file and a main activity. And you'll see the layout on the left here is in folders. In a little bit, this is going to change and be a clearer layout here once it figures out this Android. So when you're first opening up Project Watch, there's a build kind of thing down here or cleanup. So it is still working on loading things. You can start coding there, but again, a lot of times you might get error. Things might say, oh, this is not understanding, because again, it's still loading the environment. So we're going to let this load a little bit here for us. So